Welcome back, everyone, to a special surprise guest Sunday on 11/11. We are so thrilled today to have an so dynamic duo. What they do not only helps people and inspires them and makes them feel great after the fact, but they make it fun, doable, and something you can have the whole family take part of. Well, with that in mind, I will ask our two mystery guests to introduce themselves and tell us what they do.
Hi, I'm Janice Kosmola. I am a professional decluttering coach. We specialize in helping you declutter, clean, and organize your spaces. And we do it in a fun and easy way. It's not going to take you a lot of time as long as you break it up into small, doable doses.
Yay! And next guest?
I am Julie Weisgerber, and I also am a declutter, cleaning, organizing coach, and we are downsize specialists, so we can help you go from way too much stuff to just the right amount of stuff.
And would someone like to say the name of the business?
We are ABC Declutter with JJ.
These are the JJs. You may remember Julie from, boy, what book was it that we did? Maybe the Season of Possibility. Yes. She was featured on the podcast then. That's before I had met Janice. And Julie ended up being in the book that we did, in the workbook. And they now have a book of their own. That's what I begged them to come on and talk about today. What is the name of the book?
The book is called Speed Decluttering.
What do you want people to get out of it once they've read the book and done whatever you told them to do in the book?
Well, we want them to realize that they aren't their stuff. There's no shame in having a lot of stuff because most Americans do. We're a country of consumerism, and it's not your fault. And once you decide that it's time to let stuff go, there are easy ways to do it so you don't feel a lot of overwhelm or guilt or despair. I mean, because sometimes you can feel a little bit depressed by getting rid of things that you held, and there's guilt involved. And we try to make it so people realize that it is an achievable thing and it's not going to be painful. We're going to make it fun.
And there's despair on the other side of that equation as well, because sometimes people will look around and they despair at the idea of ever being able to get their place in order. They just are overwhelmed by all the stuff. Julie,
Yes.
what do you want people to feel and experience when they're done with the book?
Well, I want them to see that it is easier than you would think, and you can include your entire family, and it is small, doable doses. We don't want you to be overwhelmed. We just want you to be whelmed and take care of all these different things. You can teach your kids and have fun while doing it. And that's, I believe, a lot of what you will get from our book is we're going to give you some different strategies, and we like to help people set up a plan and execute that plan and have success. We like to get you to a finish line, and we're not talking about the entire house. We're talking about each task. That makes it a lot easier for people when they can see that, you know what, I wanted to tackle that junk drawer, and I did. I started it, I finished it, and one task completely done.
Getting to be on the fringes of this project has been so inspiring because there's so many ways to go about it, and because we're not always in the same mood every day. And even though it's called speed decluttering, it doesn't mean you have to be on Red Bull going at Mach 10. It just means it's going to be an easy breezy approach, and you can choose the strategy that you guys offer that's right for you that day or for your circumstances. For example, the flat surface scramble, I'll let you girls explain it in a moment, but that might be something that you do when guests say, oh, I'm in your town, I'm going to be there in 10 minutes. Do either of you want to elaborate on what that is?
Julie, you go ahead.
Sure. The flat surface scramble is something Janice and I started doing some years back. And basically, I grab a basket. I start where someone's going to be entering my home. I set my timer, and I usually do it for a hashtag decluttering dozen, 12 minutes. So I'll set my timer for 12 minutes. And in 12 minutes, I am able to take that basket. I go to each flat surface in the room, and I take the things that do not live there, put them in the basket. The things that live there, I will leave there. Then I turn around and I go put those things away. And what helps, especially for people who are easily distracted, is you keep the basket in your hands so that if you walk into another room to put something away, because you know when you go through a doorway, your mind resets that you've entered something new. So I keep that basket in my hands and I go into the other room, I put the things away, and I've always got that little timer in the back of my mind. So I know I want to beat the timer. And honestly, within 12 minutes, I will have everything picked up, put away, and the entrance to my home will be acceptable. You can do the whole house, you can do one room at a time. It kind of depends on the size of your home and what areas you're going to be using.
I don't think people should expect to have Pinterest perfect homes. If you can have your house company ready in 30 minutes, you're on the right track. And these type of strategies will help you get there.
Neither one of us are minimalists. So we don't expect other people to be minimalists either.
You don't have to give up all the stuff you love to run a tight ship and have it be neat and clean. That's one of my favorite things about what you guys do. I want to know, what has it been like writing a book?
Well, once I got over the initial, I don't know if I really want to do this, which took me probably about a month. I kept going, I'm not sure I want to do this. I'm not sure I want to do. And once I committed, it's actually been a joy to write it. It really helped us figure out what our message is going to be. I mean, we've been doing this for at least 3 years now. And during those years, we've created courses. So we know what our goals are for people, and we have courses to help them reach those goals. But it really helped us figure out what we want people to learn and what we want people to do. Hopefully, we can give them workable strategies that they can tweak so they're successful in doing the same things and they don't do the things that we did, which is organize clutter. I mean, I have boxes and boxes of organized clutter, and it's a good thing to organize it because then you can find things. But if you're not using it, then it is still clutter. You have to really know what you have in order to know what you want to let go of.
That's a good point. Very good point. So, Julie, what was the book writing process like for you?
It was pretty cool. It was easier than I thought. And I've written things on and off all my life, but going through this and having a strategic plan. So it was like decluttering, and we set the plan and then we worked on boom, 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 get those done. Okay, move on to the next. We've got that. And then by the time we got to the end of the book, we were able to go back to the beginning of the book and declutter it. So it was really fascinating going through the actual exercises of writing the book.
And at first, we both wrote our own separate chapters, right? Because division of work, this will be the most efficient way to do it. Well, then we would read it and it's like, well, that's not exactly right. So after we got the drafts of the chapters, we actually sat down on Zoom and went through every paragraph and worked it so it sounded like us.
As a combined voice.
What was your experience like working with Whimsicality's Egads Hill Press?
It was a joy.
Oh my gosh. So yes, it was a joy. It was just honestly made it so easy for us, and asking us the questions we didn't know to ask ourselves. That was extremely helpful. And it really was a pretty straightforward, easy road to go on.
It helped us keep focused.
Oh, good.
And it made the whole process very doable because we knew what tasks we needed to achieve And I work well under structure. So you let us be creative when we needed to be creative. And then when it came down to, well, I don't know if this really works, then we would go back and we would rework it until it was right.
Yeah.
Now, Janice, we're going to start with you since we haven't heard from you about this before. How did you get into decluttering?
I got into decluttering when I moved into a large house and we got rid of the storage units. I never realized how much stuff I had until all of it was in one place. Because growing up, we grew up in a small house, moved away, went to college, went to grad school. Everything was not in my apartment. So when I finally moved into the house, it filled half of a 3-car garage and gradually got put into different places. So I started trying to declutter like in 2005. And I wasn't ready to declutter, I guess, because everything else in the program, I could get dinner on the table, I could keep my house relatively clean, but I wasn't ready to get rid of stuff. And during the pandemic, I just got tired of the mess. And I didn't realize it until my 2 daughters had cleaned the kitchen. And within a week, it looked like nobody had ever cleaned it. Like, okay, this is ridiculous. I need to figure out how to take care of this. So I finally started actually decluttering, and it took organizing, getting things organized so we had a place to put things away. And then from there, everything else clicked. It was like, okay, now that I know what I have, I know what I can get rid of. And that's coming from a child of people who went through the Depression, who went into internment camps and lost everything. So I grew up in an environment where they kept everything. And I didn't really think of it as clutter because it wasn't necessarily in the house, but our garage never had cars in it because it was filled with stuff that they were too afraid to get rid of. I met Julie through a course where we became professional decluttering coaches. And from there, we decided to create our own business, and here we are.
You brought up a word that I think is so important when it comes to decluttering, the word ready. Why is readiness so key?
For myself, I was always the messy kid, and I knew I had too much stuff, but I really didn't know how or what to do with all this stuff. And so for me, I actually had to delve into why I decluttered in the first place. And once I kind of figured that out, then I was able to let go. It's just about mindset. You really need to get in your mind that, number one, you're not filthy, you're not nuts. It's just stuff. And what is important to you and what is not important to you? What are you holding on to out of guilt? What are you holding on to for the inevitable, I may use it someday? And you discover as you're going through things that you've been holding on to something for 25 years because you may use it someday. Why did I give up that real estate within my home for this? I'm not going to use it. So it really has to do with mindset and being gentle and kind to yourself, because you're not a failure because you have a messy home.
To give a real world example, you went through something that I think was pretty intense and took some courage and readiness. That was dealing with your darling parents when they
Yes.
passed, and also the way that you're approaching your own stuff so that your children will have a different experience when it comes time for them to deal with you moving on. Can you tell us about that?
My parents had been together for 69 years, and I had gone to their state and gotten them and brought them to my city. So they were within 5 minutes of my house. And my sister and I had gone through a ton of their things, which honestly, the majority went to the dump. It was very eye-opening, all these things. And one of the things that we did discover was those are their memories, not ours. that was a huge eye-opening experience for us. We all have a couple little things from mom and dad, but not a ton, not a ton at all. And so we've been discussing that with our own children. Janice turned me on to doing a legacy list. And so we go through things with our kids, and it's been fascinating to me. Things I think, oh, they're going to want that. They don't care. No, that means nothing to me. It's fine. And that's because my memories of my kids and that item are tied to it. So I was thinking they would want that. And so it's really about being open within your family, being open with yourself. Does this mean something to me? Is this my memory, or was that mom's memory? And then you can much easier let it go and let things go out and be used by people who are going to use them or need to use them now.
You guys have an online business, and I have not seen many online businesses that have partners. It usually seems to be a solopreneur situation. So what's it like working in an online business with a partner who lives in a different state?
I've never been in a partnership with anybody, so this is the norm for me. I think it'd be different if we tried to do this back in the 90s,
Right.
where phone calls were expensive, where they didn't have Zoom and Skype and Facebook and all that other stuff. But we talk to each other almost every day. We get on calls and we can see each other. And we've met 3 or 4 times in person. Going through our coaching program together, we got to know each other, and we found out that we were kindred spirits of
Right.
sorts. I'm not sure if it would be different if she was here in person. I don't know.
Honestly, after the pandemic, we all learned to do everything over Zoom, and being able to have the face-to-face conversations is just invaluable, because it is like you are in the same room talking to each other. You know each other's facial expressions. So you can still have that actual interaction.
And
Yeah.
to a degree, I think it helps keep us accountable a little bit.
Well, that's true. And a couple of years ago, I had a big health scare, and Janice just kind of kept the stuff going while I was going through that, because I was terrified about health. And Janice just kind of kept things going, kept me encouraged until everything worked out fine. And then it was like, okay, I'm back. And then we were able to step back in. And so having that partnership really helped through something like that. And when one of us is down, the other one is up, and vice versa. And so we're able to elevate each other. I love having a partnership because Janice is the best wife I've ever had.
What do you girls consider to be the most rewarding aspect of your business? I think I've asked this of Julie before, so I'll start with you, Janice.
Just feeling like we're helping people. In our Facebook group, we have relationships with our members who post a lot, and you feel like you're invested in their success. And it's really nice to be able to cheer them on and to hopefully give them usable advice. And it's just really nice knowing that you can touch other people's lives and lift them up so they can create a better environment for them to live in too.
Julie, what would you say at this point is the most rewarding aspect for you?
I think the responses that we get back and the relationships that we've built with our clients and members of our community. For instance, last night we were talking with one of the members of our community, and her little boy jumps into the screen to tell us all his stuff, because we are now part of his life.
Oh,
Yeah. And so he had to jump in. He's like 8, jumps in and tells us what he's doing and where he's going, and he's all excited. And so that has been really cool, getting to have these actual human relationships with not just our clients, but also with their families. And we're making an impact on this little boy. He's so proud to tell us what he's done. And so that has been really rewarding, and getting a hug from an 85-year-old woman that finally gets to sleep in her bed for the first time in 4 months, because I took a few extra minutes and said it was unacceptable not to sleep in her bed. And we were just doing an assessment. I couldn't handle it. I told her, you have to be able to sleep in your bed. So I went in, we cleared off the bed together, and she was just ecstatic about that. That kind of thing just fills my heart. It's wonderful.
I want to talk for a moment about your community because I think it's extraordinary. Everybody wants to build a community around what they do, but lots of times that just means that the main person posts the video or does whatever, and then other people leave little comments on it. That's great, but that's not a really full sense of community with the people interacting with each other. And I think what you guys have done is pretty extraordinary. If either of you can think of an example of how somebody in the community was going through something difficult and how everybody in the community rallied around to help them get through it. You have a few stories like that, don't you, girls, within your community? If one of you could share one.
We do. We have a woman right now that just had hip surgery, and the whole community has been reaching out to her, encouraging her beforehand, sending her lots of love and all that kind of stuff. And now that she's had the surgery, they're all rallying around her to lift her up, to support her. It's okay that you're doing your hip exercises rather than decluttering that drawer. That has been the kinds of things that people do when someone was downsizing, getting ready to relocate. People were right there giving tips and hints and support. And that's what I like. It's not so much about the tips and hints. It's
Right.
about, we're here for you. We're here with you. And you've got this. And it's wonderful to see the members doing that for each other. It doesn't have to be headed up by us.
Well, I have this problem. Like they had like a rug cleaner or something and it was getting a musty smell. And they're like, well, how do I clean this? What should I be looking at? And there were about 5 or 6 people who jumped in and said, well, have you tried this? Did you check that? It's just really nice that people are willing to help each other and share their experiences in order for somebody to find a solution. So you don't have to just, rely on Google.
And they check back in
Yeah.
to see if it helped. And I love that. They don't just say, here's my tip and walk away. They say, here's my tip. And then a day or two later, they'll say, hey, what have you tried? How's it working? That I love.
I think that's a testament to your leadership. You guys have set that example. It feels so good for them. They want to do the same for others. So I think you guys should pat yourselves on the back for that. So we already know that you've got this fantastic book coming out. Tell us what day it launches, please.
January 30th, 2025.
Woohoo! Is there anything else you're looking forward to coming up soon?
Ooh.
Why? Yes, and thank you for asking. Janice, tell them, please.
We are launching on the same day our podcast. It's called the JJ's Declutter podcast.
We're going to tackle like one thing at a time, come up with a question, and then we will tackle that for each episode. And
we are not judgmental about people, but we are judgmental about advice given in magazines and online. And we will go over those, and we call those magazine moments with the JJs, and we put on our judgy pants and we talk about the advice that is given.
Our first episode is basically an introduction.
Excellent.
Yeah. So
then
that
our second episode is about how and where to start decluttering.
Okay, that's huge. Once people have listened to the podcast, they've looked at the book, they know the steps they need to take. Once they've done all that, what can they do to continue moving forward? Do you have anything coming up like a course, a workshop, anything like that?
Yes, we do. We have in February, we're going to be having a fast pitch decluttering workshop. And it's going to go over our strategy of fast decluttering in 1-minute intervals of sorting. Because everyone always says, but I don't have time to declutter. Oh, yes, you do. In 1 minute of decision making, you can change the way you look at your stuff, you look at your clutter, and how you live your life. because it's amazing how decluttering is a skill and it takes practice. So if you can make quicker decisions, you're going to declutter faster. That really will change the way you look at your things.
It's also going for me to change the way I look at my schedule, because when I heat up my tea, I let it sit around, then I have to reheat it. It's for about a minute. So I could be doing one of these things in a minute. I could be
Yes.
decluttering. Oh, I'm so excited. and also, I think this is great because I know fast pitch is mentioned in the book. And so now we get to see how to actually implement it in a way that work for our particular lifestyle. This is exciting. By the time of January 30th, when you have the first podcast, will you have the date already?
Yes, we will.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, that's exciting.
And the cool thing is it's baseball themed because, fast pitch.
No,
So
and spring training's coming. So
Yes, exactly.
we'll be ready. What would you say is the difference between speed decluttering and doing a deep dive?
You can't really speed declutter sentimental items because those take too much thought. We're looking for decisions in 2 to 3 seconds. And for a lot of people, it's very difficult, especially if you're just starting decluttering. And deep dive decluttering is more when you're getting rid of things that you have guilt and sentimental attachments to. Like your junk drawer, you normally don't have a lot of attachments to. You can speed declutter your refrigerator because things expire, so it's easier for you to get rid of things. But things you've been holding on to for sentimental reasons, I think that's more of a deep dive decluttering.
besides the sentimental things, a deep dive is something that's going to take longer than a minute. But when you have practiced with your speed decluttering, as Janice said, you are learning to make very quick decisions. Say you have your big master closet and you really need to declutter that. That's going to be a deep dive because there's a lot of things in there. And so it's not going to be something you can speed right through. So we give you the tools and teach you how to make quick decisions so that a lot of that can be gone through very quickly. And you will find that it is easier on you. It's not like this big, heavy, dark cloud over your head going, I got to get back into that closet. It is, oh my God, I just did the entire left side and wow, look what I did, because you were able to make those quick decisions.
You learn how to plan it into doable sections. So you do it by categories. And you don't say, I'm going to empty the entire closet at once and dump it in the middle of my room. You say, I'm going to go through 20 items out of my closet and make decisions on those. And if you've got time and you feel like you have the energy, you do another 20 items. So you make a plan to make it more manageable rather than just being overwhelmed by all the stuff in the closet.
Exactly.
So Janice took the bold step to join the local board of the philanthropy we mentioned, which is Whimsicality. What made you decide to join our local people that put on the local events and so on?
Well, number one, you said you needed somebody locally, and gee, I'm local. Our last dog was a rescue dog, and he brought a lot of joy to our life. And I really felt connected to the fact that you do help animal rescue organizations and things like that, in addition to supporting the arts and artists and nurturing children and families. So I think that it really is giving back to communities in a meaningful way. I wanted to help. Plus, you have a storage unit that needs to be decluttered, and geez, that's what I do. So I figured I'd help that way too.
Thank you. And Julie, as you know, we've been looking for several months, maybe even a year, for someone in the Northwest to be on our greater board, not doing the local stuff, but we try to have representation from around the country so that we tap into the mentality of what people are wrestling with. For example, if you're in Florida, you're going to have very different things you're dealing with than our local board people who are in Southern California. We do try to have different portions of the country represented. And what about it made you say yes to representing the Pacific Northwest, Julie?
It was the pirates.
I can't tell if you're joking or not, because for me, that would have
I
been,
have pirates in my history. So how can I not?
you have pirates in your history?
I do. I do. I just think it's fascinating, helping artists when during the pandemic, my handsome husband and I had, I think, 8 different concerts that we were going to go to that year. And then they, shut everything down. And so, since the majority of them refunded our money, we used our concert going money and we supported local artists here in our city and bought their art instead because I was an essential worker. I had one woman that wanted to gift me one of the things that I was going to buy. And so when we showed up to meet, I was buying one and she was going to gift me the other. And so I paid her for both. And
Oh.
she stood there crying because she was able to make her mortgage
Oh,
because of that.
my.
And that made a huge impact on me. And so we made sure that we supported that. And I posted about it. And I had other friends that did the same thing. They weren't able to do these other things, but that was in their budget. And so they supported local artists also. It was wonderful. So our farmers market was able to get us the contact information for artists that we knew down at the farmers market, who were also able to share with us other artists who were struggling during that time, because that was their only means of support. And then all of a sudden, boom, everything was shut down. So that was really huge for us to be able to do that. And I was really impressed that your whimsicality does support artists.
It's fun to see how Whimsy's evolving to meet new needs, because the needs are not the same as they were. Well, we've had an administration change in government in the US. That will be a huge shift for people as to what their interests are going to be, their needs are going to be, and the way that they're going to want to express their creativity or what they might want from us. So we are evolving to meet new needs instead of just sticking with where we were. So it's kind of interesting for me too to see where we're going.
Yeah, who knows what's going to happen with education?
To say it's in crisis is the biggest understatement ever. I did a ton of research on it and I was mortified at what I saw. At the end of every pod chat, we like to give our listeners a tiny task for them that day, which is perfect for speed decluttering, because we believe that if you're doing tiny tasks on a consistent basis, you can have a huge change in your life. So what is the one tiny task you would want to assign to them today?
ABC Declutter with JJ's task is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1 item to donate, 2 items to put away, and 3 items to put in the trash.
I cannot wait to do this. This is great. Is there any last little bit of advice you want to give to people who are starting decluttering and are kind of overwhelmed or think it's beyond their capabilities, or they just don't know how to get started?
Well, be kind to yourself and realize you did not collect all these things in one day. So it's going to take a while to uncollect them, and that's okay.
Since we're talking about decluttering, I think that if you're going to gift things to people, we might want to start thinking about giving things like experiences rather than items, because a lot of people look at gifts as, if they don't really love it, then it's just clutter. So if you can give somebody a gift that deals with an experience, then they can take away the memories and they won't have the physical clutter.
I love that. Less stuff, more wonderful
Or
experience.
life. Yeah.
More life.
Life.
I'm hoping that you girls might consider coming back on again in a few months to tell us what's going on in your world. And at that time, I would love to get a couple of testimonials of people that started with the Speed Decluttering book and started with your podcast, and over the course of a few months, how it changed them. Thank you so much, girls. This has been an absolute treat for me.
Thank you, Joy. We really appreciate this. And just keep in mind to keep it simple, keep it intentional, and keep decluttering.
I love it. Chinese stay home, everyone. 2 talk.